Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. A video uploaded to social media is raising some serious questions about the treatment of a visibly Indigenous 16-year-old girl by 6 security guards at a busy shopping mall in Surrey, British Columbia. APTN's Tina House has this story and a warning. Some viewers may find the video of the incident disturbing.
This video was uploaded onto social media on November the 13th that shows a 16-year-old girl who doesn't wish to be identified being detained by 6 security guards at the Guildford Town Centre Mall in Surrey, BC.
Yeah, you're traumatizing her. Let go of her. Let go of her now. Let go of her. Let go. You're using unnecessary force. You don't need to hold on to her like this. What are you doing? Why are you putting your knee in her back? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are?
After what was supposed to be a fun time for who we will call Jane and her 2 non-Indigenous friends at the mall turned into a nightmare after security guards questioned only the Indigenous girl about stealing from the Victoria's Secret store. After the teen showed them inside her bag, which had nothing in it, a security guard then allegedly slapped her phone out of her hand and smashed it on the ground.
They had me outside first, and then they brought me inside, and that's when all of the other security guards came and they all cornered me. And then that's when I started feeling like I was being trapped, and like, I don't know, I felt really cornered and like, I felt really claustrophobic by being surrounded by all these security guards, and that just made me feel really inhumane. It made me feel like not human, being like so surrounded by security guards and getting pinned to the ground after I showed them I had nothing.
Jane says when one of the security guards had her on the ground, she couldn't breathe for up to a minute. According to the teen, the entire incident lasted for approximately 10 minutes until police showed up. The Surrey RCMP confirmed that they did go to the mall. Their statement reads in part, on November the 12th, 2024 at 8:43 p.m., police responded to a report of an assault on a security guard at Guildford Town Centre. Police were advised that the suspect female was being detained by the mall security. Our officer attended and arrested the suspect female for assault. According to the mall security, the female allegedly spat toward a security guard and was subsequently detained. The suspect, who is a youth, was released at scene to their guardian. Investigation is ongoing, and all aspects of what transpired are being looked at. But Jane's mother says her daughter was not arrested or charged, and she believes her daughter was racially profiled.
Shame on you guys. You guys are grown, big men. There's no need to be handling anybody like that or even put your hands on anybody at all. Like, it's very shameful.
Sino General is her stepfather and says their daughter is traumatized over what happened.
Speaking with her after and then speaking with the officer was talked to her right away and was more on her side, like right away, like, okay, she was like, something's off. And she went and watched the TV camera in the mall, and she saw that she was offering her bag, showing that, hey, I ain't got nothing. Look, I ain't got nothing. And they still went in and grabbed her. And so, like, that's where the officer was like, they should have de-escalated. They didn't. So, that was an assault. That was forcible confinement, public mischief, because they singled her out as being Indigenous.
APTN reached out to Paladin Security for comment, but we did not get a reply before the story went to air. A rally is planned for later today outside of the mall where it happened, and we will have a full story for you next week. Tina House, APTN National News, Surrey.
The Union of BC Indian Chiefs have sent a letter to the council of 5 different municipalities across BC who have denied the harms of residential schools and unmarked graves to stop spreading misinformation. Tina House traveled to one of those communities and has this story.
It all began in January of this year when Sechelt District Mayor John Henderson brought this book called Grave Error, a book that denies unmarked graves, into City Hall and shared it with senior staffers. Mayor Henderson declined APTN's request for an interview, but Deputy Mayor Brenda Rowe agreed to address the issue.
We don't feel that that was an appropriate action. This is not about freedom of speech or the right to read. This is not about book banning. This is about being in a position of leadership in our community where our neighbor that we are 1 kilometer away from is Sechelt First Nation. And we just don't see that as part of a leadership role.
The Union of BC Indian Chiefs recently passed Resolution 2024-33, Rejection of Residential School Denialism, calling on not just the municipality of Sechelt, but also the municipalities of Powell River, Quesnel, West Vancouver, and Kamloops to advance policies that acknowledge and take responsibility for the history and harmful legacy of residential schools and support healing for survivors. UBCIC also stated they want Mayor Henderson and other mayors who deny the unmarked graves to step down immediately.
Generally speaking, from the council members' perspective, our resolution was embraced, it was supported. However, on the mayor's side, generally speaking, Quesnel, I believe the mayor walked out of the room. They simply would not walk back their comments. And in my opinion, that's an appalling failure of leadership.
And in Sechelt, every city councillor voted in favor of the resolution, except Mayor Henderson, who also refuses to do any land acknowledgements before any events or meetings. For Sechelt Chief Lenora Joe, she says her community members are hurt by his actions, and their self-governing council will no longer have any more direct dialogue with him.
The impact that it's had on our community, on our children, it's very real. And to have, we would never denounce the Holocaust. We wouldn't say that didn't happen. We wouldn't say that's fake. And so I don't understand why we have some mayors taking that stand. I don't understand it.
The mayors in question have all refused to step down. Tina House, APTN National News, Sechelt.
An elder in the Samson Cree Nation in Alberta says the furnace in his new house has broke down. And with winter rolling in, it's too cold to stay there. As APTN's Chris Stewart reports, the elder is looking for a place to stay warm until it can be repaired.
More healthier programs around here.
Elvis Wakino says his furnace stopped on October 20th. He had only moved into the brand new modular home a year ago. Elvis is a widower. He lives here by himself, and he is still grieving over the 2022 loss of his son. He loves his home, but with temperatures dipping, he is forced to use a tiny heater in the living room and bedroom to help heat his place. They don't do much. The floors are freezing. He wears his coat and slippers inside. He has no choice. He's been cold now for almost 3 weeks.
Sometimes I go sit in my vehicle and warm up, try and warm up, especially in the night. So if only there could be help, I'd really, really appreciate it. But apparently, where is it?
He says Samson Housing has sent repair people, but a part needs to be ordered, and there is no timeline on when that part will arrive. In the meantime, winter comes closer.
This morning a guy came and he undid something there and it's all dismantled and everything. So, and they told me try and get a place but where am I gonna get funds? Like to go to a motel or something. At least I'll be warm there.
You can afford it.
I can't afford it.
He says he has talked to leadership on his furnace issue and finding a warm place to stay.
They don't listen. I talk to them, but they'll say, yeah, tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. I just don't feel good about I really don't go there anymore.
Samson Communications told APTN there are people looking into the matter, and leadership is not available for comment.
If only I could at least get, a room to get, to at least to be warm in there. until they could fix the problem here. But where's the help?
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Samson, Cree Nation, Alberta.
Still to come, Indigenous veterans who served in Hong Kong are finally getting some recognition. Stay with us. Welcome back. Over 100 Indigenous veterans from Canada served in the Battle of Hong Kong. However, their legacies and identities were often erased from Canada's military history. Reporter Sierra Betton sat down with the daughter of a Métis veteran to discuss her mission to honor the forgotten Indigenous soldiers.
Pamela Porteous-Heinrichs has spent the last few years trying to retrace a fractured history. Through the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association's Indigenous Veterans Project, she and a team of volunteers have identified over 100 Indigenous soldiers who served in the Battle of Hong Kong.
Rather than just the association saying, here's our Indigenous soldiers, I wanted to see how the Indigenous families would benefit from it.
Many of those veterans, like her father, Ferdinand Poitras, a Red River Métis from Winnipeg, hid their identities. In fact, at the time, there was no Métis category. Soldiers were identified as First Nation or by European ethnicities.
The project is special to me in that regard too, because I'm sure there's other families that were the same, that we can now take pride in that.
Ferdinand Poitras enlisted with the Winnipeg Grenadiers in 1939 when he was 19 years old. They were sent to Hong Kong in November 1941.
Britain asked Canada to send regiments just in case Japan attacked the British colony of Hong Kong. And it was apparently never dreamt that that would happen.
But it did happen.
Their army vehicles didn't reach them, all kinds of supplies didn't reach them, and they were greatly outnumbered by the Japanese, who were battle-hardened troops. They had to surrender Christmas Day 1941, and any that didn't survive the battle became prisoners of war.
For the next 3.5 years, Poitras was a prisoner of war in a Japanese-run camp.
My dad was prisoner number 110, and he could still say that number in Japanese right up until his 80s.
264 Canadian POWs died in those camps. In August 1945, the Canadians were liberated after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced Japan to surrender. However, when Poitras and other Métis veterans returned to Canadian soil, they faced another reality. A Veterans Affairs letter dated March 5th, 1946, describes his prospects.
This was the part I found interesting. His background and education place him in the general laborer class. So they wasn't even thought that they could go on and do anything more.
Poitras died in 2008 at the age of 87. Growing up in Winnipeg, Porteous-Heinrich said her father never spoke of being Métis. She began reconnecting at 19 years old, which is the same age her father was when he enlisted. While some Métis veterans hid their identities, others, like Manitoba Métis Federation Minister John Fleury, wore them with pride. But that pride wasn't always accepted.
They either asked you to identify as English or French, and I had a issue with that, so I would cross it out and I'd say I was Métis, and they would say that's unacceptable. You have to respond with the English or French.
Fleury also understands why some Métis hid their indigeneity.
If people could assimilate into the non-Indigenous society, then they would, for the sake of advancement, protection of their families.
In October, Poitras-Heinrichs ran a booth on the Indigenous Hong Kong Veterans Project at this year's Manitoba Métis Federation's annual General Assembly.
We had people walk by and say, that's my great-grandfather. And there were some other families that came by that had no idea about the association or about our project and what we were doing, and they were literally in tears at our booth. So moved and grateful for what we're doing for their family member.
Today, Poitras-Heinrichs and her children are reclaiming the Métis pride that their father and grandfather wasn't afforded, and with every Indigenous veteran identified, helping other families do the same. Sierra Bettons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Canadian Commission for UNESCO has released a new toolkit to make Indigenous language revitalization more accessible. The free toolkit, titled Safeguarding Your Language Through Documentation, is geared toward people who want to document an Indigenous language but lack formal training. The 44-page document is written by Iyana Twig, a member of the Ktunaxa Nation in British Columbia, who has been working to revitalize her language since 2018. It includes an overview of the equipment, strategies, and ethical considerations to begin documenting an Indigenous language. The project is part of the Council's efforts to support the United Nations International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which began in 2022. Project coordinator Barbara Filion shared a look inside the toolkit and how the resource will benefit communities.
We know that there are some pretty dire statistics out there for Indigenous languages. And if you want to take an active role in your community, you know some speakers, whether it's in your community or in an urban Indigenous community, you know some speakers, you'd like to record them, then you can do that. You can grab the toolkit, and there's a lot of tips and techniques on how to record, like a lot of technical stuff, but then there's also ideas about how to elicit conversation, how to save your work. There's ethical considerations. There's some consent forms that you can use, some wording. So it really gives you a general overview of what you need to think about to get started.
A public memorial service was held for the late Murray Sinclair this past week. More on that coming up after the break. Welcome back. A national commemorative ceremony was held on Sunday for the late Murray Sinclair. T.R. Wheatley was there, and she put together this soundscape with some of the highlights.
We honor a very special man, my father, the Honorable Murray Sinclair, Mija Nagije Kiban. So, Bojo Dinwe Magaduk, Nigon Webedam Nadishna Kosna Magoshindo Dem Nimenwenda Momayayin. He was the first Indigenous person of almost every single room in a time in which Indigenous peoples were not welcome in courtrooms, in boardrooms, classrooms. That meant he spent a lot of time explaining, teaching, listening, and walking alongside a country that didn't always want to hear what he had to say.
What is my purpose in life? My purpose in life is in my name. The name
we now welcome the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister.
Murray always thoughtfully listened, even when he disagreed. A smile that would come every time he'd gently but firmly point out where I might be wrong. Fill in an element that I hadn't thought of, but really should have. Or, like a real teacher, encouraged me to just put a little more work into my proposed solution.
My name is Phyllis Webstad. I'm the founder of Orange Shirt Day. One of the things that the quotes I use in my presentations for him are, Canada will know it's close to reconciliation when Indigenous people no longer refer to their lives as a healing journey.
My name is Harold Cochran. Murray was general counsel at my law firm called Cochran Sinclair, and we changed it effective October 24th, so just before Murray left us. More importantly, he was a mentor to me, so I'm here to pay respects to the family. He's left a big shadow, big steps for us to follow, and I know at our law firm he's been involved in a lot of the class action work that we've been doing, all meant to address historical wrongs, and that's one of Murray's legacies.
Let truth be a key to freedom and bind you to the path that holds the light.
My name is Grandma Shingus, Jerry Shingus. Murray, that I want you to know that you gave so much love to the survivors, including myself. And today I want to bring that love to you and to your family.
I'm Dan Vandal. I'm the MP for St. Boniface, St. Vital, Minister of Prairies, Minister of the North. Well, I first met Murray around 1986 when I was working for the Mama Wewichi Tata Center. He just led by example. The message I took away from my interactions with him was never be afraid to advocate what you believe in. and always, always, always be proud of where you come from.
We would like to now invite Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Mary Simon, Governor-General of Canada.
At the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I was very emotional. Senator Sinclair came to me and comforted me with warmth and compassion. People felt a sense of trust and authenticity around him, that they could be who they are without judgment.
David Chartrand, President of Red River Métis. His name will linger in the halls of courts, in the halls of governments and parliament. But you look at pride. You know, he brought pride back to our people without anybody realizing what was happening, as the change was happening. You've seen the people, Indigenous people, stand up and begin to defend their rights, begin to stand up for injustices.
My name is Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak. I'm the Assembly of First Nations. I'm the National Chief. It's not always easy to talk about the history of this country, what has happened with residential schools, what has happened in the justice system. He spearheaded those head on, and he's changed the trajectory of our people. We're thankful to his family for sharing him with us.
I want to invite someone who has been very kind and generous to celebrate the life of my dad, Premier Wab Kinew.
Consecrated by a traditional pipe, Murray swore me in as the 25th Premier of Manitoba. And on that day, he shared those words with us. You have to learn to love the people, even when they don't love you. But I have to say, in the days since Murray drew his final breath, I've reflected that it's not just good advice for leaders. That is good advice for life.
Remember me when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me.
What a beautiful ceremony it was, and of course you can find much more on the life and legacy of Murray Sinclair over on our website, aptnnews.ca. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this weekend. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.